trade. It's the one thing that everyone has told you to do in Path of Exile 2 as either a returning veteran or a new player. And it's probably one of the biggest holdups for a lot of players right now. But will we be seeing a true instant buyout auction house style system within Path of Exile 2? In this video, I want to discuss this topic and go into more detail about Grinding Gear Games' philosophy on the matter from Path of Exile 1 and how it has evolved across the years. But in my typical fashion of upfronting the knowledge in my video, yes, there is an instant buyout trade system coming to the game. I'll use the term auction house for simplicity going forward, but in the interview with Zizaran, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, at the beginning of 2024, Jonathan said that PoE 2's trade system needs to evolve with the times. I have linked that video below with the proper timestamp. Just simply jump to 1 hour, 52 minutes if there's any issues with that link. But we'll go into more on why they didn't want a trade system in PoE 1 in the next section, but the initial working goal is to make the PoE 2 system have an instant buyout and strong search engine, but make it so that you have to use your gold to tap into the system. This helps create trade friction, another term we'll talk about in a bit, while also filling the need that players have for a modern trading mechanic that is built into the game rather than a third-party website. So the website we're using now is just a stopgap until a proper system is implemented during early access, which is coming. Now, how that comes is going to be different now, of course, because this is a year almost out from that interview, but it's worth noting that that system is planned and will be implemented. That's honestly the too long didn't watch of this entire video, and probably the big bit of news that you wanted to know, and I want to be respectful of your time. So please feel free to shut the video down if that was all you wanted to know. If you are heading out and this video does end up helping you, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe, as each one of those things helps me out in a huge way. You can quickly navigate to any part of this video that interests you the most by using the chapters in both the timeline and the description. Lastly, don't forget to check me out on Twitch, where I stream this game every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, as well as plenty of other ones as well. But let's get started on trading in auction houses in Path of Exile 2. This is going to be kind of an op-ed piece where I kind of just speak. I'm not going to, well, you'll see some gameplay footage here and there. But this is a trade manifesto that Grinding Gears released back in 2017. So it's been obviously a long time since then. And this is referencing the way that they approach trade in Path of Exile 1. So obviously, again, things have changed since, but it's to understand why things out the gate weren't just so plug and play, click and play an auction house. And before we even jump into most of this, for those that have, and I'm not going to go through every little thing, I'm going to just truncate down basically their thoughts and how they approach stuff. For those of us that played Diablo 3 on launch and through the majority of its life cycle and remember the auction house, what you probably remember about the auction house is the real money auction house, which was a sham, terrible. But once they ditched the real money auction house and got the auction house kind of operating at least on a more functional level, what became the biggest issue with the auction house, and this is something that Jonathan talks about in that interview I've linked below, is that all the really good items are blown out of proportion, astronomical level of expensive. And all of the items that are not that amazing, build defining, unique are just super dirt cheap. So what ends up happening is people end up, rather than playing the game, they end up trading the game, just trading their character's progression rather than playing the game to get their minor little bits of dopamine to push them forward. Now, of course, you can make the argument right now that Path of Exile 2, if you're brand new to the series, is too hard and trading is the only way to access it. I understand that argument, and I'm not discrediting it. I'm just trying to talk about the overall philosophy of what they want out of a trading system and a gaming system. They want you to play the game. They don't want you to trade your way through the game, which I can appreciate and I can get behind. I also have reservations on the trading system we'll talk about later. But what they wanted to do with the trading system in Path of Exile 1 was introduce what they call trade friction. And basically, it's making a consequence for trading in the sense that if it's too easy to trade, if you just bring up a GUI and take a look at an auction house and you have a bunch of instant buyout things for pennies, right? Diablo 3's auction house right before it was shut down, you could buy a disgusting DPS, really, I think it was called Razor, something Edge. It's a two-handed axe that was stupid good. You'd buy it and it would have 10,000 DPS, whatever stupid numbers that game had. and it would cost you like 500 gold, which is nothing. It is absolutely nothing. You could constantly upgrade your character in the best items every level for 1,000 gold with 2 minutes of looking on the auction house. So an easy trade system like that tends to make it so people stop playing the game. And that's kind of what their mentality is here, right? Easy trade reduces the number of times a character improves their items because they're basically just buying they're constantly pushing the best item on their gear by trading it versus little micro upgrades by, okay, I killed something. Well, you know what? This has like 10 more fire resist. I'm going to go with that instead. You get the little bit of a good character progression going that way. So trade friction also implies that the system itself is not as easy to tap into. And when it's a harder system to tap into, it makes it so that trading is not something you do at the drop of a hat all the time. It's something that you do, okay, I've hit a wall. My character cannot progress. I can't kill things to micro upgrade. I need to trade. So the trading becomes a necessity versus, okay, I'm just going to use this to kind of push myself through, so on and so forth. And again, I understand all the arguments that people are going to have in a system like this. I'm talking about Path of Exile 1's mentality and what that mentality is going to be and how it's going to evolve coming into 2. I understand we all have full-time jobs. We all are working our asses off, and we don't have a million hours in the fucking day to do this. So I'm, again, just want to reiterate that. So another thing, too, is that basically with trade, it kind of creates a disparity with drops. And ultimately what it comes down to is, here's one of the most important lines of their mentality for trading. While a regular player would be lucky to accumulate a small handful of exalted orbs in a league, a trader might reach hundreds in the same time frame, where basically my point I talked about earlier, where if you play this game a lot and you've just got the means and you understand how to manipulate drop rates and stuff like that to get tons and tons of orbs, and you have the means to do substantial amounts of trading, you are leagues above a regular player that maybe doesn't have that ability to tap into it. So you have this huge disparity between things that are pretty good, but not the best items in the game. The cost for them is just so substantially less. Like, okay, if I'm going to buy like what I look at as an upgrade to my gear, but it's not like a build defining unique, then it costs to use this game's currency, an orb of transmutation, which is just super inexpensive, right? But the gear defining unique is like 15 divine orbs, something stupid like that, where it's such a huge disparity that it really discourages you from truly getting the good items because there's that disparity. And also, a big part of easy trade allows for greater abuse by automation. That was the biggest thing with trade friction. They wanted to make it so that bots couldn't easily simply buy up the lowest value things that someone just threw on without understanding the price. Like, okay, I'm going to throw the best unique in the game onto the quote unquote auction house for 1 orb of transmutation. Well, before anyone else can take advantage of it naturally by coming on a come up, a bot scoops it up. Or there's mass bot transactions that mass buy a bunch of these things and mass resell them at a lower rate. All sorts of stuff, AFKing, a lot of crap. They wanted to kind of create a friction system behind that so that you do have to go to a website, you do have to create a party with a person and engage in a trade and manually put the item into the person's hand. That was the solution for Path of Exile 1. And it was what worked for them with the system that was created around a game that came out in 2006. But coming into 2024, 2025, right? We have games that have a really good trade system in Last Epoch. We have an expectation from players that want to trade their items. And it's also a big part of their ethos and behind the way that Grinding Gears makes their game. You know, like, we don't want there to be binding in our game. We want things to be freely tradable. We want items to have a value to players, and they want them to have a value to other players too. They want to create an economy. So that it does exist, that drive, that impetus to have that for people. So how does that all kind of come around into what we expect with Path of Exile 2's trading?
In order for a game to be able to have trade, there needs to be something that restricts its use in some manner. And the previous way we looked at that was that you can either have instant buyouts or you can have instant like good search. And what we've been saying is, okay, well, I don't think players are going to accept anything less than instant buyouts, because I don't think there is a way to solve to solve the kinds of problems that people have with trade and PoE without having instant buyouts. So therefore, we now have to take as an axiom there must be instant buyouts, right? We must have that. There must be in some manner a way. How can we have that without having this problem? Now, previously we would have said, okay, well, in that case you can't have good search, but people will not accept a solution that doesn't involve the ability to search for items correctly. Therefore, we must have a proper search function.
Okay.
So what are we to do now then, right? Like if we must have instant buyouts and search, there has to be some manner of way to limit trade and some other means.
Yeah.
Now, if we're not going to have binding, that means there has to be some form of resource that limits trade in some manner that you have to play the game to get. And if that's the case, well, what resources do we have? Well, in PoE 2, we have gold. And if gold is something, so therefore we discussed basically gold can be a limiting factor. And if we make it so that you can't trade gold, you can only play for gold. And if we add a gold fee as a part of an instant buyout cost, that can mean that we can potentially have a trade system that has instant buyouts and searching while still having a way to and no binding and all that sort of stuff. So it is possible to do that. So we're discussing it, right? We're looking into this. I think that it solves a really important problem. I believe it is possible. We have to, as I said, there's a lot of details to work out.
Yeah.
There's a lot of issues and concerns. But as I said, I think that people will no longer accept an action RPG that doesn't have instant buyouts for a trade system. So therefore, we will need to change. And as I said, we have to move with the times, right? Like we can't. And as I said before, I don't want to have any excuses if players are not enjoying something. We need to find a way to solve that problem.
And with Path of Exile 2, they've already stated in that interview, like I said, they're going to do a system. And whether or not that is simply just putting honestly, if you just took the trade website and put it into the game through a GUI, I don't think anyone would really have a problem with the trade system as is. I know there's a lot of frustration behind messaging people and the people not responding. That is very frustrating. And I don't know if there's some sort of way they could do something around that within the game's constraints as it is. But that, I think the accessibility of the trading website is its own friction that is an unintended byproduct, I would say, of an older system, right? This is an old PoE 1 system that's been shoehorned into 2 as a stopgap until the intended GUI is put into the game. And the biggest issue is that it causes friction, quote unquote, with console players. If you want to do it, it is a pretty laborious login process. And if your console is not next to where your PC is or whatever means you're using to tap into the trade website, you got to run back and forth. It's tedious and it's annoying. So just simply having that placed in would be a huge step forward. But we know that it is going to eventually be gold bound. And now why that's a good thing is that they've said, hey, the two things that the system, the auction house, whatever it were, we can acknowledge that if it's an instant buyout system, it can't be easily searchable. Or if it is easily searchable, which it is right now, there isn't an instant buyout system, which is the way it is right now. There's a powerful search engine with no instant buyout. Because the problem was they wanted that friction to exist so automation and all these abusive things can't just occur. So the solution here is using gold, because gold you cannot trade from one character to another. From one player to another. Your characters all share the same gold pool. So by using gold, which is player found, it's not easily traded or anything like that, you then get a resource that you can use to tap into an instant buyout, strong, searchable auction house, which is going to be really exciting to however that's done. The currency exchange system's already in the game, and that was something that they were talking about would be present with Path of Exile 2's launch. So it's exciting to see what we'll be getting with this launch. And this system already roughly exists. Console has had its own little trade system for Path of Exile 1. The Chinese servers have their own auction house, which is really, really jank. It's really wild. Looking at the videos and looking at the screenshots for the Path of Exile 1 quote unquote auction house is really, really wild. And of course, there is an existing way to tap into it with the website. So all this stuff, I think, eventually comes out to a system that we all want in a searchable, instant buyout mechanism that we can tap into that isn't abused as easily. I'm sure there's going to be ways that it will be abused. I mean, every system in gaming eventually gets abused by some way or another, right? Like, I feel like it's an inevitability of gaming, like a law of physics or some shit. But I think that this is the right step. I think it would be cool, though, if they put this down in some form of writing as an official statement, like, hey, you know, we've seen this come up a lot. Because, I mean, the people that have seen this interview have been watching Path of Exile for the last year or two, right? Or Path of Exile 2's development for the last year or two. They're invested in the development. They're Path of Exile 1 veterans by and large. So to have Grinding Gear come out and say, hey, you know, not our roadmap, because I think roadmap has become such a dirty word in game development lingo, but created like an expectation. Your expectation for, or our expectation for Path of Exile 2 is that we will launch 6 more character classes. We know that. One more ascendancy for each character class. We know that. An in-game auction house with instant buyout and strong searchability with a gold-bound currency system that has a restriction to tapping into it. That, I think, putting that in writing, some sort of way that people that are new to the game now know. If you go and type into the Reddit for Path of Exile 2 auction house, you will see tons of posts of people talking about they want it in the game. You'll see a lot of posts of people saying, well, they don't like, they want trade friction. They don't want that to be in. Not a lot of posts of people mentioning this interview. So this interview is really like, I mean, dude, this is like a 15, 16 minute video. This video, the interview is the only important thing about it, right? It's just me explaining where the ethos came from, where that philosophy came from, and how it has evolved with the times. I mean, the intro to the video is the real video right now, right? But I think ultimately this is going to be a positive step forward. It's something that a lot of people want. I personally love using the trade website as it is, but I play on my PC with 2 monitors, and I'm a power player because I've got like a serious machine and blah, 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 because I'm too fucking nerdy. But my point remains, making this more accessible makes for a healthier game, makes for a stronger economy. And Grinding Gear is smart enough to know how to make this system work without making it become Diablo 3's abusable auction house that was just simply buy your way to victory for 50 gold apiece. So I'm excited to see what the future looks on this. Go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. Are you excited? Did you not even know this was coming? Did you know this was coming and I've gotten some things wrong that have changed since? Whatever it is, go ahead and let it be known in the comments section below. Fill out as much information so that people can really get an idea of what is coming for Path of Exile 2. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.